First, discombobulate. Date, discombobulate. Distract target. Discombobulate. Block his blind jab. Discombobulate. He'll attempt wild haymaker. Discombobulate. In summary,
You just gotta do it.
Oshiete, Yoko sensei.
Hello, Foxtrot. Is this you in the corner? Unfortunate, isn't it? You are now part of this beautiful zone, as my coach, Alden, told me is called the Rainbow of Sadness. Welcome to another episode of Teach Me Yoko. And this episode is about an aspect of Street Fighter and fighting games that generally not many players like to focus on or study: defense. Before we start, I thought you might want to know my history in fighting games. In Tekken 7, the highest rank that I have reached was ruler ranks with Kazumi, and that's already post-nerf as late as final season. In Street Fighter 6, I do main Elena, but I do have a Diamond Ryu, Jamie, and a Master rank Chun-Li. I also participated and did relatively well in a legendary tournament you may have heard called Softboiled Sea Scramble, hosted by the handsome sage of the Philippines, Dip in Blue, and his co-host Ryu Brainrot champion Vig PP. Also, I have played fighting games since Tekken 3 era, picking up other fighting games such as Soul Calibur, Smash Bros, Mortal Kombat, Guilty Gear, Marvel vs. Capcom, and Skullgirls to name a few. So I know how intricate and different both offense and defense philosophy in fighting games can be. This video, however, is mainly about Street Fighter, but I will be teaching you defense mentalities and philosophies that can help you even outside of Street Fighter. So back to the clip. You can see that we are in this beautiful rainbow of sadness. Why is it called that? As Alden aptly attributed, it is a very sad rainbow where everything you do is just out of range, but everything the opponent does is just in range. Now, how the hell is that possible? One reason is because they can shimmy, so spacing is something that they actually have a luxury of. With your back against the wall, that is not an option that you have. Move forward at the wrong time, you'll get hit by a quick low poke and maybe DRC to combo you on the wall, which really hurts. You cannot block all day either because you'll get drained and you will most likely get DI'd for a full painful combo. Did you poke them with the 2MK? Well, if they spaced you perfectly and have practiced with punishing, you get punished counter for a full painful punish combo. All in all, it is not a great situation. But let us see what options we have so far that are relatively safe. So, if your opponent is very close and you jump, even if they cross-cut DPU, you are out of the corner. It is something that I have learned is called the wall tax. This is basically tax for getting out of the wall, and that is the health you lose. So you take a bit of damage instead of taking so much damage, be it health or drive gauge. You could slowly inch forward and stop to give yourself some wiggle room, throwing your safest pokes to see if you can stop your opponent's pressure temporarily. Realistically, however, they will also try to stop you from moving forward by throwing long-reaching mediums or heavies. Remember, the philosophy of the rainbow is that you are out of range, but they are not. So how the hell do we get out of this situation? First is getting the mentality set. You will not get out of the rainbow unscathed. Be it mental or health damage, you will get hurt to some extent. Accept that and you will now have to respect your opponent's attacks, and that is really important. There is no easy way to get out. The next step is to get as far as you can from the wall, and to take your time. Unlike games like Tekken, Street Fighter does not have sidestep, so you cannot sidestep your way out of the wall. Also, unlike Tekken, however, Street Fighter's rounds last 99 seconds, not 60. So you have time, a good amount of time, to get as much ocean of space as you can to make opportunities, because that is really the problem of being in the corner. Opportunities and options are so limited, so we have to change that. We have to increase our options, opportunities, so that our chances of getting out are higher. Now, especially in SF6, offense is actually a good defense. Throwing out lights, which recover relatively fast, is a good tool to stuff out normals or even some specials that your opponent will use to keep you cornered. Don't be afraid also to drive rush cancel, especially if you throw a normal that is plus on block. Because remember what I said about not getting out unscathed? That is exactly my point. You will lose something. Health, drive gauge, super meter, etc. You will lose something. Outside of the corner, the philosophy of defense in Street Fighter 6 is not really about blocking forever and reading throws. It's about stealing the offensive from the opponent. Although it's not exactly ironclad, there is a little bit of RPS involved. Technically, in most situations, lights beat mediums, mediums beat heavies, and heavies beat lights. How? Let's assume all of these moves are done in the best situations. Lights at point blank, mediums at medium range, and heavies at tip range of normal attacks. Lights are fast, but they are also short in range. Their active frames are long enough to catch mediums, but the startup of most heavies are so slow that lights will be in recovery before they connect. This is why heavies generally win against lights. Mediums, on the other hand, reach way farther than lights, which is why they are generally good at catching both stray lights and punished with heavies. However, the reason why lights beat mediums is because at light's best range, which is point blank, most mediums cannot outspeed a light, and even some mediums are very minus to the point where a light will actually punish counter it. This means that if your opponent is spacing you, consider using mediums or heavies. If they are perhaps a zoner, you may want to close the gap first, so this means your ideal normals are lights and mediums. Now again, I want to emphasize what I just mentioned about a little bit of RPS. It is not ironclad, it is not guaranteed, but the philosophy is there. One is fast, but it's short range. One is slow, but it's far-reaching. And one is in between. One philosophy is purely theory and some science and math, but again, like I said, it doesn't apply all the time, but it does quite frequently. And this theory that I like to call is the theory of three. Most of the time, and I emphasize most of the time, fighting game players will not do the same thing 3 times in a row. Most likely twice, but not 3. So, if a JP is always throwing spikes from his shards, there's a high chance that the third will be a teleport. You might think, why? Why would the third one not be another spike? There's no way he's not going to do that 3 times in a row. Because the theory of 3 also has one aspect. A player will not fall for the same thing thrice in a row. So this JP player is thinking, this guy just blocked my shards like twice in a row. There's no way he's going to eat that the third time, so I'm gonna teleport. That is why generally on the defensive perspective, they will think there's no way he is throwing that thrice in a row, because there is no way that he's going to think that it's gonna work the third time. He's gonna try something else. So now both sides are now countering the worst case scenario, which is their opponent knows what they are going to do. The tricky part here is playing against that or playing with it, right? You know the saying, just play along, right? So you could choose to just play along and play as if you know that there's a you know that the third shard is not going to be a projectile, right? It's not going to be a spike. It's, you know, it's probably going to be a teleport, but you play as if it is a shard or a projectile, right? A spike. You do this by maybe just staying still or just having your drive parry ready. So it gives the sign to this JP player that, oh, yeah, they're, even though I think they're not falling for this the third time, they are still going to block the spike. All right, sure, I'll teleport. In the case that they do that, this person who's ready to block is probably ready with their crosscut DP or their DP, depending on where the shard is. That is one way to play around the theory of 3. you can feed into the theory that no one falls for the same thing thrice, or you can play around it and make the player like, no, do it the third time. Like, come on, I'll fall for it the third time. And again, I want to emphasize, it is a theory. It doesn't really happen normally. But then again, Foxtrot, most of us at Softboiled aren't exactly normal, are we? We don't play normally. And most people in fighting games, especially in ranked, not in the professional scene at least, they don't play normally either. And that is pretty much what I can teach you about defense in Street Fighter 6. From the Rainbow of Sadness to stealing the offense, fighting games is really about risk. Anything you do will have some risk. It's not about eliminating the risk. It's about managing it and making the risk a little bit in your favor, and even playing around the risk your opponent might know. I wish you luck in your button mashing endeavors, Foxtrot. There is no shame in button mashing after all. Having fun is priority. Good luck, and I hope you look forward to the next video.